No love affairs. You cannot marry. You say you have to know each other, you know, talking and everything. She amazes you. You cannot marry. She's not a believer. You're amazed, but you are not allowed to marry. I told you every ayat that I'm going to read is related to believing men and believing women, not by label Muslims. I'm a Muslim submitter, I'm a Muslim submitter. So you know what? They go to different schools of thoughts. And then the Sunni girl get married to Sunni girl, a boy, and the Shia girl gets married to Shia boy. And this Qadiani girl gets a Qadiani boy. You know, they are getting married in their own systems. Similarly, Allah has made the system is belief. Belief in the ayats, in the essence of the ayats. In that context we are talking about. And the most important, another point is, the word used for women here in the ayat is ayyim, I told you, amatun, meaning slave woman. Look in the Arabic, wala amatum mu'mina, a slave woman. But further when we read for the men, wala tunkihul mushrikina hatta yu'minu, wala abdum mu'minun khairum min mushrik. Thus, a woman, believing woman cannot marry a slave man. The word changes, becomes abd. Abd means servant. You see the difference? You do not let your women marry who associates with Allah until they believe, a believing servant, not a believing slave. The Arabic for women is ama, ayyam, amatun, means a slave woman. But for a man, it is abd, meaning servant. And I will read the meaning. The slave is the person, one who is the property of one and wholly subject to another, one entirely under the domination of person. If a man, believing man, can marry a slave believing woman, I can subjugate, she's my property, wholly subject to me as a believing man. She is my slave, I have purchased her, entirely under my domination. I can do that. But for the believing woman, she cannot. Allah has word the word abd means service, a person who is employed on wages by another to perform domestic duties, a person in service of another. Slave and servant are two different words. So a woman cannot marry a slave man, but she can marry a servant who is performing certain duties. She's like a boss of some factory or whatever. She's manager or what. She can marry a person who will assist her job. She can hire that man, not a slave, because she comes under the husband. Because one darja is given by God, one degree is given to Allah to men. So that is Allah used the word abd, means servant. He can perform duties for you. He can be employed, but she cannot marry a believing slave. She can marry a believing servant. You see the difference how Allah you choice the words? Because Allah knows the psyche of man and the psyche of woman. The psyche of woman is to live under the protection of man. So this servant can protect her. But a slave man will be totally dominated. So Allah says, no, he must be a servant, believing slave. Another point here is, and Allah says, and وَلَا تُنْكِحُ الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا, and you do not let your woman marry who associates. Normally when people read this, it appears to them that the woman can marry, a woman should not marry a man who is associate. No. It is the believer men people, believing men, whether they are the fathers or the brothers or anybody, the believing man has to look for a boy, for the believing woman. Look, and you do not let your woman marry. So the power comes to men, believing men, who marry who associate with Allah until they believe. And a believing servant is better than one who associates, even he amazes you, not the woman. You must understand what I am reading. If I select a boy, not my daughter, men, believing men, and I have to judge. If he is not a believer, and even that man amazes me, not my daughter. In Arabic is walau ajabakum, not kunna, not used for females. You know, people read it vice versa. It's not vice versa. It is for the believing man to look up a man, and this is what happened in the world. Whenever I or everybody, a man comes for my daughter, if he says that I like her, I want to marry her, it is for me to judge the man, the believing man, not my daughter. And after the analysis, after my judgment, believing man judgment, that he should be a believer, and if he's not a believer, I'm being amazed by his personality. Not my daughter, men. It is the man's decision, not the woman's. And after the judgment I have come across, and then I can ask my daughter. And then further, if there are 4 or 3 or 2, I have to select among the 4 or 3, then I can share with my daughter. It is never the other way around. The woman cannot marry a believing man. No, it says you do not let your woman, believing woman, marry who associates with Allah until they believe. And the believing servant is better than who associates with Allah. Even he amazes you, meaning men in Arabic. This is very important. Amazing situation. Normally women think we can, take up a right for a man. No, it is the man who has to judge the man's character, the personality, the sound judgment. The man has to judge. Because they invite you to the fire, and Allah invites you to the garden, and the forgiveness is with His permission. And He clarifies His ayat signs for the people so that they will remember. So the clarification of the ayat is a servant, believing man is alright with the believing woman. But a slave woman is better for a believing man. So the next verse is referring to Surah Nur. These are the ayahs that are referring that whom you cannot marry. An-Nur 24 and ayah 3. Az-zani la yankihu illa zaniyatan aw mushrika. Was-zaniyatu la yankihuha illa zanin aw mushrik. Wa hurrima dhalika al-mu'minin. The fornicator does not marry except a fornicatress or a woman who associates. And the fornicators do not marry except a fornicator or a man who associates. That has been or is being unlawful, forbidden over the believers. In this ayah, amazing situation. Who is a zani? Zani means a fornicator who is addicted to committing illegal sexual act. Addicted. For example, if I smoke a cigarette, or if I take a glass of wine or drink anything which is forbidden once, do you think I'll become addicted to that? If any girl or if any man commits adultery or fornication, is nothing. It's an act wrong, I agree. But once she gets addicted to fornication, she or he is a zani or zaniya. And they are known. They cannot hide, like so-called prostitutes, or any woman who is famous, or any man who is famous involved in these activities is zani. That is why Allah is not asking them to kill them or stone them. That's the biblical law. That's the biblical law. After being addicted to fornication, the punishment in the Quran is 100 stripes. both the parties who are not married. That is why it says a zani, fornicator, does not marry except a fornicatress. If you have killed the fellow, the man or woman, how a zani will get married to a fornicatress? So in the nearness of God, and a fornicatress, an illegal sexual relationship is wrong. Allah says, do not go near to that. But if you have committed is not a fornicator, if you are addicted to that, then you become a fornicator. And for that also Allah says in the Quran, the further in the Surah Nur, that you can get married. Oh sorry, you can have that 100 stripes for men and women both. But then he said the fornicator does not marry except to a fornicatress. That means a fornicator man does not like a believing woman. He does not like. He wants his style of, so many bad experiences he has got. So he intends to marry a girl who's got bad experiences. So Allah says the fornicator man should marry a fornicatress woman. And the vice versa, the fornicatress woman should marry a male fornicator. And for believer it says, and that it is being forbidden, unlawful for over the believers. So believing men and women cannot marry a fornicator, for fornicatress. But for the believer it is forbidden. So these are also forbidden, women and men. Now in Surah Nisa 4 and ayah 22, وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا مَا نَكَحَ آبَاؤُكُمْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَمَقْتًا وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. And you do not marry from women to whom your fathers and sisters married, except without doubt what is past, bygone. Surely it is an obscenity and hateful, and a bad, evil way. Very simple to understand that a person is not allowed to marry the mother or a grandmother, or his fathers whom his fathers married. All are mothers to him. You cannot marry, except without doubt what is past or bygone. What is that? Suppose in this world, at this present society, anywhere in the world, a person who comes to the ayahs and he believes in the ayahs, and he's married one of his mothers. So Allah is forbidden, except what is past or bygone. You will not divorce her. You live with it. But you don't intend to do it in the future. This is very important to know. When Allah says, illa ma qasara, except what is past or bygone, but you do not do in the future. Remember in the ayahs when it says, what has been done is done. It has become past or bygone. You cannot go leave her and the children and you just walk off out. So Allah is accepting that, but remember, do not do in the future. Surely it is an obscenity and hateful and a bad and evil way. So in the world there are people who have done this wrong act and they have got kids and living in the world. I am talking about the international world. So for them is a lesson, if you become a believer and you are reverting to Islam and the Quranic ayats, you will not divorce her. You will live with her and let her go, let it go. Allah will forgive you. But keeping that you have changed in your mind, that I have done wrong, there are things that you have to do for your forgiveness, and you keep your life going as based on ayahs. Now there are other categories. So Surah Nisa 4 and ayah 23. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ أُمَّهَاتُكُمْ وَبَنَاتُكُمْ وَأَخَوَاتُكُمْ وَعَمَّاتُكُمْ وَخَالَاتُكُمْ وَبَنَاتُ الْأَخِي وَبَنَاتُ الْأُخْتِ وَأُمَّهَاتُكُمُ اللَّاتِي أَرْضَعْنَكُمْ وَأَخَوَاتُكُمْ مِنَ الرَّضَاعِ وَأُمَّهَاتُ نِسَائِكُمْ وَرَبَائِبِكُمُ اللَّاتِي فِي حُجُورِكُمْ مِنْ نِسَائِكُمْ اللَّاتِي دَخَلْتُمْ بِهِنَّ فَإِنْ لَمْ تَكُونُوا دَخَلْتُمْ بِهِنَّ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ وَحَلَائِلُ أَبْنَائِكُمُ الَّذِينَ مِنْ أَصْلَابِكُمْ وَأَنْ تَجْمَعُوا بَيْنَ الْأُخْتَيْنِ إِلَّا مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Now in this there are Muhtaram or the forbidden relations mentioned that you cannot marry. It is being unlawful, forbidden on you in marriage are your mothers and your daughters and your sisters and your father, sisters, paternal aunts and your mother sisters that are maternal aunts and your brother's daughters, nieces and your sister's daughters, nieces and your mothers who breastfed you and your sisters from the breastfeed and your women, wives, mothers, mother-in-laws and your those stepdaughters in your laps, custody from your wives whom you have entered with them. So if you have not entered with them, then there is no offense on you to marry the stepdaughters. And your sons' lawful wives from your loins, backbones. And unlawful in marriage is that you join combined between two sisters, except without doubt what is past, bygone. Surely Allah is forgiving, merciful. Now, there are certain relations everybody can understand. Do I have to repeat? Except, now there are two things I have to repeat. And these are from here. And your mothers who breastfed you and your sisters whom the breastfed. Now there are times, nowadays, you generally give the milk of a cow. But there are times that you require, if there is some woman who got more feed, you can give your son from her feed. She becomes your mother. Yeah? You understand this? In the old, but this can be practiced today also. In that connection is mentioned. This is something we have to understand. And your women wives, mothers, mother-in-law, you cannot marry her. Okay. This is the important. And your those stepdaughters in your laps, custody from your wives. What is that? If I marry a woman who has already got two daughters from other husband, now I marry this woman, listen to me very carefully, if I marry this woman and she brings her two daughters, young daughters, eligible for marriage, and they come into my custody. So Allah says, look, and your those stepdaughters in your laps, custody from your wives. They are my wives, but they have got two daughters from other husband, whom you have entered with them. Whom you have entered with them means to my wives. And she brought two daughters. You understand this? Now, further I read. So if you have not entered with them, then there is no offense to marry the stepdaughters. Can anybody understand what I am talking? Huh? Can anybody understand what I am talking? Huh? That is what I am explaining. Where you will enter with your wife? Huh? After marriage you enter, if you have entered with them, you cannot marry their your stepdaughters. Sexual intercourse. Okay? So now if I have had this sexual intercourse with them, I cannot marry those stepdaughters whom she brought, because they are my stepdaughters now. But suppose I get married to this girl, and if I am not able to enter with them, then I can marry the stepdaughters. But look, this is so clearly written, but the point is, if suppose I do this, how the world will react? Because you people are not believers. If I marry a woman, bringing along with the stepdaughters, and if Allah knows, I knows, my wife knows that we have not entered, there is no other witness. And if I marry the stepdaughters, what you will say to me? This is Quran, this is ayats. Allah is clarifying things, but we have got our own concepts. And believe me, Previously I already read, if you have married your mother without knowing the ayahs, and if you have done it, so Allah said that is past, bygone. But you believers should know you cannot put a word if he's changed. But you will keep on cribbing. That man is doing this, that man is doing this. What is the purpose of these ayahs? That if somebody has done wrong and if he amends, you have no right to point a finger. Look into your own selves. When Allah has given the permission to do so, we will not go by the ayahs. We will say, oh, look at him. He married his mother first, then now he's married the stepdaughter. Look at this man. Who can be the witness? I'm asking you. Entered that gentleman asked a very good question. Entered in him, in her. How? So if you have not done that, you can divorce her and marry the stepdaughter. Is allowed by Allah. And that is the witness. Who is the witness between these parties? Allah, that man and that wife. But what about you people? You will say, look at this guy. He married the first mother and now he's married the daughters. Astaghfirullah. He's doing wrong, committing adultery and fornication. This is man. If you are a believer, you don't have doubts. Even in the previous ayat, Allah says, if you have done it by wrong, that is past, bygone. Carry on. You don't have to point fingers. That is what Allah is educating. This is the important points. And further, your son's lawful wives. Again, the word is halailu, mean your lawful wives from your loins backmost. If same is with the sons. If the sons did not enter, they are not lawful wives. Halal. Halal means that they are lawful. They become, that son has already had relation with the wife. They become lawful wives. So the father cannot marry those wives, the daughter-in-law. You cannot. But this son of mine has not made halal to the wife, is not become lawful to the wives. I can marry the daughter of my son, I can marry. You see, these are very important ayahs. You just read it, you know. Allah, that's why He used halailu abnaakum, meaning your son's lawful wives, that he has committed that act, so they have become lawful wives of the sons. So you cannot marry them. And those sons are from your loins, backbones. Now I cannot marry them. And further it says, and you combine between two sisters, except without doubt what is past, bygone. He always used this word. Because Allah knows there are people who have committed this crime. And once they read the ayahs, they know they have done it wrong. And now they want to revert on the ayat. What do? They broke the family. They can keep on. You people that don't have to point fingers. This is the education. Because it means you do not believe the ayahs. When Allah said it is bygone, past, done is done. What he will do? He will still crib all his life that I have done wrong. I have married two sisters. I have done this. You understand? You must understand these ayahs. When you have committed wrong out of ignorance, and once you correct, amend, so Allah is forgiving you, because lead your life. Otherwise, totally collapse. You know, he'll have severe depression. He'll go into agreed wrong and amend. That's the education. If you have amended yourself, no problem. Allah says, accept what is past and bygone. Now you don't do it and educate what is wrong and right about the relations. So this is how these are forbidden women. Okay? And in continuation, Surah Nisa 4:24, وَالْمُحْصَنَاتُ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ إِلَّا مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَأُحِلَّ لَكُمْ مَا وَرَاءَ ذَلِكُمْ أَن تَبْتَغُوا بِأَمْوَالِكُمْ مُحْسِنِينَ غَيْرَ مُسَافِحِينَ فَمَا اسْتَمْتَعْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْهُنَّ فَآتُوهُنَّ أُجُورَهُنَّ فَرِيضَةً وَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا تَرَاضَيْتُمْ بِهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ الْفَرِيضَةِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ عَلِيمًا حَكِيمًا. Now Allah says, these are very important ayahs. Wal muhsanatu minan nisa. And 45 women are unlawful to you. 45 women. Wal muhsanatu minan nisa. I'm just reading this portion. Wal muhsanatu minan nisa. It means a woman is 45 from the woman. There are many women and one woman is 45. She is also forbidden in marriage. What do you understand 45? I explained to you in the beginning. No, you can say married, but actually 45 does not mean married. Nikah means married. 49 means that they have surrounded and strengthened with defense against any form of attack, physical, sexual and emotional. So that means that woman is 45. That means we can say she is 45, that means she is married. You understand what I'm saying? A woman living with the parents 45 or not? You'll understand. I'll ask a question. Come on. I'm asking you, listen to me very carefully. Any woman living with the parents is 45 or not? Huh?
Not always.
Hold on. One by one. Come on. Huh? No, he says. What about you people? Again, I'm repeating. Look, this is the important, this is the very, very important. If she is not married, she is not 45. Why? Because their men can approach them. The father cannot fortify her. It is the husband fortifies. And she has to be fortified for the husband. Otherwise she is open. This is very important ayat in the Quran. We people have been mistranslating this ayat. Fortified woman is those women who the husband has taken to fortify. And she is fortified for her. She means she has fortified her psyche. She has fortified herself to the husband. And when she is not married, she is not fortified. She is open. There are men can approach them for marriage. So remember, muhsanat woman is always a married woman. And that fortification takes place because of the husband. So that is why it says, wal muhsanatu minan nisa. So Allah says the fortified women from the women are unlawful. If she is not married, how can she be unlawful? Huh? Illa ma malakat aymanukum. The exception is recorded in this very small ayah. Wal muhsanatu, meaning any woman who she is fortified to a person, minan nisa, from the woman, illa, except ma malakat aymanukum, except what your right possesses. That fortified woman, meaning that she is married to somebody and she had fortified herself with that man, all kind of attacks she has been fortified. But exception is, except ma malakat aymanukum, what your right possesses, that she can become in that condition. If she comes in the condition of ma malakat aymanukum, means what your right possesses, she is allowed. How a fortified woman becomes lawful is by a person who is a believer. If that fortified woman becomes what your right hand possesses. To understand, I will come back to this ayat. To understand, you have to go to the next ayat. Surah Mumtahina 60 and ayah 10. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha jaakumul mu'minat muhajirat famtahinuhunna Allahu a'lamu bi-imanihinna fa-in alimtumuhunna mu'minat fala tarji'uhunna ila al-kuffar la hunna hillun lahum wa la hum yahilluna lahunna wa atuhum ma anfaqu wa la junaha alaykum an tankihuhunna idha ataytumuhunna ujurahunna wa la tumsiku bi'isamil kawafir واسألوا ما أنفقتم وَلْيَسْأَلُوا مَا أَنْفَقُوا ذَلِكُمْ حُكْمُ اللَّهِ يَحْكُمُ بَيْنَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ عَلِيمٌ حَكِيمٌ. O you believe, when migrating believing women come to you, then examine them, their belief. Allah knows more with their belief. So if you come to know they are believing women, then do not return them to the rejectors. They are not lawful wives for them, nor they are lawful husbands for them, to the migrating believing women. And you give them what they have spent, and there is no offense on you that you marry them when you have given them their wages. And you do not hold fast to the rejected woman with ties bound. And you ask what you have spent on them. They should ask what they have spent. That is the governance of Allah. He governs between you, and Allah is knowledgeable wise. Now what happens? There is a couple, but they are rejected couple. Married woman. A woman married. Muhsanat means she is been protecting herself or guarding herself for that husband. Okay? Now she migrates in belief. She migrates in belief. She comes to a believer. So let's say, oh, you believe, when a migrating believing woman come to you, the believers, then examine them. Examine them means examine their belief. Allah knows more their belief. So if you come to know that they are believing women, then do not return the believing woman to the rejectors. They are not lawful wives to the husbands. So they were married, they were muhsanat. They were muhsanat. But they were muhsin to a rejecter. Muhsin means that to guard, strengthen, and the physical and sexual, the emotional attachment to the rejecter. They were married. They were muhsin. So now when they migrate in belief, that married woman, Allah breaks the relationship. It says they do not return to them to reject. They are not lawful wives for them, and nor they are lawful husbands for them.